To begin with, I ask that we be honest about who these unaccompanied minors who travel to the United States border seeking refuge actually are. They are children, children fleeing unspeakable violence in their home countries. Children like 13-year-old Juliana, who made the harrowing trek from El Salvador to the United States after being kidnapped, beaten, and raped, seeing her father murdered and her mother stabbed by gang members. We're talking about children, nearly a third under the age of 14, nearly a third of them girls, a number that's growing alongside increasing gender-based violence. Most of these children come from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, collectively known as the Northern Triangle, a region plagued by gang violence, weak institutions, and poverty. These children undertake the perilous journey to the United States because, like Juliana, they have faced forced gang recruitment, kidnapping, rape, and sometimes even death. To be blunt, it's stay and die or live or flee and live. We cannot tweet our way out of this problem, and we must address the root causes of this forced migration. In 2015, El Salvador had the highest homicide rate in the world. Today, it remains 11 times that of the United States. Honduras and Guatemala rank among the top 6 most violent countries in the region. If we aim to reduce forced migration, we must improve the conditions in the region. Our only hope at doing so is by working with the governments of the Northern Triangle. Such an effort demands robust support and funding for the State Department and USAID. Yet the President's fiscal year 2019 budget calls for a 42% cut to these regional initiatives. That's not a serious policy response. Nor is the administration's recent decision to end temporary protective status, what we call TPS, for El Salvador and Honduras. This will only exacerbate the problem. In recent weeks, I published findings from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee staff indicating that the decision to end TPS for El Salvador and Honduras was likely politicized. U.S. diplomats and State Department officials advised the Trump administration against it. They warned it would, quote, weaken U.S. national security, undercut bilateral cooperation against transnational gang violence, increase illegal immigration, and likely endanger the lives of TPS beneficiaries and their U.S. citizen children by exposing them to gang violence. Warned of these dangers, the administration did it anyhow. That's why I'm urging the Government Accounting Office to investigate this decision. The administration may wish Northern Triangle problems would just go away, but once these children reach the border, we must afford them due process. The Bipartisan Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2008 strengthened federal anti-trafficking laws and established a process for children who arrive to the United States alone by ensuring all children are screened for trafficking and by prohibiting their quick deportation. Our laws say children from non-contiguous countries must be granted an immigration hearing, allowed to consult with an advocate, and turned over to the Department of Health and Human Services. These laws are grounded in due process and child welfare principles so that the United States does not return a child to their death. President Trump claims our asylum laws are full of loopholes and that we have open borders. Well, either he doesn't understand the law, doesn't care to learn, or both. Those granted asylum undergo security background checks. Those posing security threats are barred from receiving it. Asylum seekers must prove a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, and that's no easy task. But the President and some congressional Republicans would rather dismantle legal protections for children and sow fear to score cheap political points with their nationalist base. Calling these children gangbangers and deporting them won't address the complex problems in Central America. And rather than propose solutions, the Trump administration's practice of separating children from their parents at the border is actually creating more unaccompanied minors. Parents are criminally prosecuted while children are left to the whims of the federal government. Such policies will not stem the violence in the Northern Triangle driving this forced migration. President Trump is instead creating a new class of de facto foster children and manufacturing a child welfare crisis. More than 700 children have been separated from their parents. At least 100 are younger than 4 years old. Tearing innocent children away from their parents is shameful, it is cruel, and it is un-American. The administration claims to be for law and order, but it deals in chaos and discord. So let me close by saying that instead of doing the hard work of governing, these shortcuts turn into crisis. We cannot criminalizing asylum seekers simply because they didn't assert their claims at an arbitrary checkpoint runs counter to international established refugee and asylum law. And finally, the administration must stop conflating all immigrants with criminals. The combined 33,000 DACA recipients in Nevada and New Jersey, they're not criminals, nor are the combined 12,500 TPS holders from El Salvador, Nevada, and New Jersey. And these unaccompanied children shouldn't be labeled criminals either. And that, Mr. Chairman, is I hope the committee will take into its consideration where exactly we should be doing as a nation that talks about family values but tears families apart.
Thank you, Senator.